Hi, my name is Anthony, and this is my Part B for our Learning, Teaching and Inquiry assignment, adapting an AI lesson plan to adolescent context. To begin this assignment, I used generative AI to generate an initial 3-lesson sequence for a Year 9 history unit on the causes of World War I. The prompt used is shown at the top of the slide, which was create a 3-lesson sequence for a Year 9 history class introducing the causes of World War I. The AI produced a basic structure consisting of 3 lessons that introduce the causes of the war, exploring the July crisis, and then asking students to evaluate responsibility for the conflict. While this sequence provided a useful starting point, I found that the output was quite generic and focuses mainly on teacher explanation and simple activities, and it doesn't fully consider the developmental needs of adolescent learners. Therefore, in the following slides, I will demonstrate several research-informed modifications I would make to improve engagement, support adolescent brain development, and better address student well-being and classroom diversity. The first consideration when modifying this lesson sequence was how to cater for adolescent learners and what they need in order to engage effectively in learning. So one key change I would make to the original AI-generated sequence is replacing the sort of lecture-focused approach with peer-based source analysis supported by short brain breaks. I found that the initial lesson relied heavily on teacher explanation and note-taking, which really can limit engagement for middle year students. Research on adolescent development suggests that students at this stage are highly socially oriented and often learn more effectively through interaction with peers. Bahr explains that adolescence is a developmental period strongly influenced by social relationships and identity formation, meaning collaborative activities can significantly increase engagement and motivation. In this adapted lesson, students would work in small groups to analyse primary sources related to the causes of World War I. This allows them to discuss interpretations, challenge each other's thinking, and construct historical understanding together. Main and Pendergast also emphasise that meaningful participation and positive peer interaction are important contributors to both engagement and well-being in the middle years. Additionally, I would incorporate short brain breaks between activities to help students regulate attention and maintain focus across the lesson. The second modification focuses on how teaching strategies can utilise the positive neurological changes that occur during adolescence. Research by Bahr shows that this stage of development involves significant structural changes, particularly through the processes of synaptic pruning and myelination. Synaptic pruning removes neural connections that are used less frequently, while myelination strengthens and increases the speed and efficiency of neural pathways that are regularly activated. During adolescence, these changes particularly affect the prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for higher-order thinking skills such as reasoning, planning, problem-solving, and decision-making. This means that adolescence presents an exciting opportunity to develop these cognitive abilities for appropriately challenging learning experiences. To take advantage of this developmental stage, I would adapt the second lesson into a sort of historical decision-making simulation. Instead of me sitting at the front, sort of lecturing them about the July crisis, students would instead take on the roles of different European leaders and decide how their country should respond to events such as the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Students would need to use historical sources to evaluate evidence, consider potential consequences, and justify their decisions within their groups. By repeatedly engaging in these sorts of complex reasoning tasks, students actively strengthen the neural pathways associated with executive functioning. This repeated cognitive practice supports the processes of pruning and myelination, helping students develop more efficient thinking and decision-making skills, while also deepening their understanding of the historical content being studied. The third modification focuses on how the learning environment can be structured to support students who may have experienced trauma or adversity. Research shows that traumatic experiences can significantly influence how students respond to classroom environments. Trauma can heighten sensitivity to perceived threats and make it more difficult for students to regulate their emotions, maintain attention, and engage in learning activities. Because of this, creating emotionally safe and predictable classroom environments is therefore essential. One key strategy I would implement throughout not only this lesson sequence, but my teaching as a whole, is maintaining clear and consistent classroom routines. At the beginning of each lesson, the schedule would be displayed so students understand the structure and expectations of the class. This includes sort of the running outline for the lesson and also learning intentions. Activities would follow a predictable flow, including collaborative learning tasks, discussion, and reflection activities. Predictability can help reduce uncertainty and anxiety in the classroom, which supports students in feeling safer and more comfortable in the environment. This approach aligns closely with the Bahr Street education model, which emphasizes safety, structure, and strong relationships as key foundations of trauma-informed practices. I've personally undertaken training in the Bahr Street model, and this topic particularly resonated with me as it closely connects to my current role working in a school as an SSO. In this role, I regularly work with students who have experienced trauma or adversity, so creating predictable, emotionally safe learning environments has become a key part of my professional practice and development. McDonald also emphasizes that many behavioral challenges in classrooms may reflect underlying stress or unmet emotional needs rather than intentional defiance. By establishing predictable routines and emotionally safe environments, teachers can better support both student well-being and engagement in learning. The final modification focuses on how teachers can acknowledge and support students who may be experiencing adversity in their home lives. Adolescents bring a wide range of personal experiences into the classroom, and factors such as family stress, trauma, or instability can affect concentration, participation, and emotional regulation. Due to this factor, classroom practices should intentionally promote both well-being and resilience. The first accommodation I would implement is providing multiple ways for students to participate and demonstrate their learning. While some students feel comfortable expressing their ideas through traditional written tasks, others may engage more effectively through alternative formats. One example of this is on my most recent placement, where my supervising teacher and I allowed students flexibility in how they express their understanding within their submission. For example, we had one student who was otherwise quite disengaged from writing tasks, but he had a strong interest in filmmaking. So to capture this student who was otherwise not completing any of his writing, we flipped the assignment on its head and we allowed him to create a film to accompany his written essay. This allowed him to demonstrate his understanding in a way that aligned with his interests and strengths, and it completely captured the engagement of a student who was otherwise extremely disengaged from the task. A second strategy involves building strong relationships through small, consistent check-ins with students. A simple interaction such as greeting students at the door by their name, asking how their morning has been, or even checking whether they have had breakfast can communicate care and support without being overly intrusive. These small moments help students feel seen and valued within the classroom environment. This aligns with the Bahr Street educational model, which emphasizes safety, emotional regulation, and positive relationships as key foundations for learning. When students feel supported and respected by their teacher, they are more likely to feel safe in the classroom and engage more confidently in learning, as highlighted by Main and Pendergast. Ultimately, these modifications demonstrate how lesson design, classroom relationships, and an understanding of adolescent development must work together to create learning environments where students feel safe, supported, and genuinely engaged in their learning. Thank you for listening.